CISO Forum and the 9.9 group to today's webinar on a topic that is highly relevant to all IT security practitioners who are today overwhelmed by alarms, reports, and compliances, and are looking for ways to streamline their work and enhance the organizational security posture. While there is no doubt that better tools and technologies are making it easier to protect the enterprise, the past year has still seen a huge number of data breaches and other serious incidents. India's organizations have also not escaped unscathed, despite the best efforts of those responsible for cybersecurity. Hackers are getting increasingly sophisticated, agile, and organized, and are finding new ways to defeat the defenses. Our expert speaker today will look at securing the organization from a variety of threats and will recommend ways to address risk through best practices that encompass people, processes, and technology. The CISO Forum is pleased to introduce our speaker for the day, Dr. G. Ramkumar. He's a seasoned cybersecurity leader with more than 20 years of experience in leading multinational companies. He currently leads the cybersecurity governance, risk, and compliance function for a well-known international automotive company. Mr. Ramkumar's expertise encompasses information security, corporate security, data privacy, and business continuity, and he has a track record of establishing integrated security programs in BFSI, ITITS, ISP, media and entertainment, healthcare, and automotive sectors. Dr. Ramkumar holds a PhD in information security, an MBA, and a master's in computer applications, along with many other professional certifications. Over his long and distinguished career, he has been recognized with numerous industry accolades. He is also the author of a book on cyber crimes. In addition to his professional achievements, Dr. Ramkumar currently dedicates his spare time to mentoring and teaching at various academic institutions, and he actively contributes to the field of cybersecurity through leadership roles in industry associations. In his talk today, Dr. Ramkumar will be covering security best practices across people, process, and technology dimensions, concepts of security by design, zero trust, and defense in depth, and effective governance, risk, and compliance programs. However, before we begin today's session, I would like to request everyone attending this session to post their questions for Dr. Ramkumar in the Q&A box. We will take them up at the end of the session. So without further ado, let me invite our speaker to share his views on implementing cybersecurity best practices in the organization. Over to you, Dr. Ramkumar.
Thank you, Giridhar sir, for such a nice introduction. And I'm very much thankful to you for giving me this opportunity. Let me share my screen. Any one of you can
yes,
confirm if you are able to see my screen.
We are able to see your screen, sir.
Okay, awesome. So I think sir has already covered my introduction. I will just talk about the best practices around the different domains of cybersecurity. I'm going to keep this presentation at a very high level. Let's not get into the details, otherwise it will become a training session. And the whole idea today is to ensure that in the current hyper-connected world, where you face existential threats, cyber threats, right, almost constantly, it's very important that cybersecurity programs is well-rounded, well-funded, and it is having the required attention it deserves across people, process, technology. And also it is very agile in terms of, meeting new challenges from cyber threats, and especially the incident response, because we work under the assumption that we are already breached or there is a security incident. So you'll have to be very, very resilient to ensure that we do not get stuck because of a major disruption, right? So we are talking about today cybersecurity being in all domains, right? And it's at the core of our hyper-connected society. Some of the slides I'm just skipping through because these are all, we are all aware of this. I don't have to explain much about it. The whole core of cybersecurity domain is about de-risking the organization, de-risking the business and the business processes. So the risk management framework and the practices are very much important. And from there, all your security processes, best practices, and technologies that we implement actually flows. End of the day, you have so many threats, but only when you perform an effective risk assessment for your organization or your process, you would be able to identify what kind of security controls we need to put in place, right? So we all pretty well know that the whole principle about cybersecurity revolves around these three tenets: confidentiality, integrity, and availability. This CIA framework is the core of security, and all our best practices should be around these three tenets, so none of them get compromised. And in today's times, the way the cyber threat actors have evolved is very mind-boggling. Today, we are talking about state-sponsored actors, right, which is supported by nation states. It is not just a lone wolf attack or people or college kids who do it for fun or script kiddies anymore. It has gone beyond organized syndicates. Today, it is state-sponsored. You can Google for APT gangs, right? Advanced Persistent Threat Gangs. And these gangs are very, very powerful in terms of the resources, budget, the skill sets, and the tools they have. So with that, they are able to target and destabilize any organization, no matter how big or what legacy they have, big branded organizations or unknown companies, it doesn't matter. So if APT groups are targeting, there is no way you can escape. The only way you can recover is having a strong recovery strategy, well rehearsed, well tested, instant response playbook, and then how quickly you are able to recover from that. And today, the APT gangs are very, very sophisticated in launching ransomware attacks, and they are very successful. And the Western media paints the APT gangs aligned with the four countries which they paint as the axis of evil, notably North Korea, Iran, China, and Russia. But that's not all about only these four countries. Every other country in today has their own cyber security actors, right? Attack actors. And wherever you have a flashpoint in real world, say for instance, the ongoing Israel-Gaza war has its own set of attackers who are hacking into Israeli systems or their allies, or the vice versa. And this became very prominent. The cyber warfare became very prominent in last year's invasion of Ukraine by Russia. There has been a spurt of attacks against countries and their companies, by these actors who are having allegiance to one of the parties, right? So we all know that people, process, technology are the core pillars of any program, any IT-driven program, and cybersecurity pretty much depends on this. And we are aware of the different frameworks that help in implementing the processes and the controls, right? We have control frameworks, we have technical standards and stuff. And we think that investing in the best of technologies, the more the hype, then we think it is all very secure. But unfortunately, you cannot put all your eggs and say, I have the best of the tools, so I'm secure. Technology is only one part, right? So this is a very telling quote by Bruce Schneier, right? He says that if you think technology can solve all your security problems, then you don't understand the problem and you don't understand technology. Why I'm talking about this is while technology is very heavy in cybersecurity, but you need to have appropriate processes to support technology controls with process controls and people controls. All three have to work in tandem, then only it makes sense, right? And today there is a big trade-off between security, functionality, and ease of use. Everyone talks about, of course, functionality is the basic design of any system, any application or mobile app, but people always look for convenience, right? So in this trade-off, security always takes a backseat. So 10 years back, when RBI mandated OTP for all transactions, people were not happy. Why should I give one more, OTP number to access my account or do a transaction, because it adds to additional layer of control, additional layer of inconvenience. That's what people think. But security always helps you to keep it secure, protect your assets. And of course, there is some amount of inconvenience. So that has to be finely balanced, right? And you see here, this picture just represents, are we looking for the risks at the right places? You see, this is very telling. No, there's a lion sitting and watching the hunter or the tourist, right? The tourist is looking for lions. So this is the sad state of affairs in many organizations where we are not aware or we don't know where to focus, right? And this is again poorly designed control, right? So you do have a gate which is only partially actually blocking. Otherwise, it's a free for all. And I wanted to highlight this particular aspect where there's a very popular quotation. It says, if you spend more on coffee than on IT security, you'll be hacked. And what's more, you deserve to be hacked. So why I'm saying this is, if you're into businesses or processes where you need to protect data, either due to customer demand or through regulations, you need to have adequate budgeting, adequate resourcing for that. If you're not doing it properly, and it is going to be trouble for you. Or sooner or later, there will be a data breach or a major security incident that will impact your business deliverables, your operational efficiency, and also bring in a lot more consequences which you would not like to, including penalties, fines, bad press, legal suits, whatnot, right? And today's ground reality is you have so much of pressures for any, ask any CISO or CIO, they will agree with all these aspects, right? You have so much of constraints happening in the industry today. And because of all these constraints, who is actually winning the game is your hackers, right? So just because you don't have budget, you don't have that bandwidth to implement a control, or you do not have visibility for the threat or the risk, right? And you just ignored it. It doesn't mean that just goes away. Hackers really don't care a damn, right? Because all the excuses that we come up with, right, is actually helping hackers to launch attacks, right? And this is a 360-degree view of security across multiple domains. Maybe I can explain the same with this diagram, right? So primarily, I'll be using this diagram throughout the slide deck on implementing the best practices. So it looks pretty crowded, but focus on one particular color-coded area so that you will be able to relate better, right? So security for each of these color-coded areas, trust me, is a distinct career path. So people who are aspiring to become cybersecurity professionals can pick and choose one particular color-coded area and specialize, and then they can expand their horizon by picking up skills in the other area, right? So we will talk about the application security. Product companies and IT product companies, application security is called product security, right? So we are talking about secure by design. This is one of the best practice that companies need to have for all the products that they develop, right? So I'll give you a live example. We all use Swiggy or Zomato every day in, day out for dining, for ordering food. If the application mobile app is not secure, it is leaking our sensitive data. Like we use UPI transactions, UPI ID for making transactions, or credit card, debit card. If those data is being leaked, then we'll not have trust in those applications, right? So these applications have to build in the necessary security features so that the data is secure at all times, and it is not being hacked by any threat actor, right? So these are the best practices and the principles that companies need to come up with. The same thing if you flip for privacy, there is something called privacy by design also. But since we are not talking about privacy, and this focus of this particular session is on security, I'm not talking about it, but be mindful of this. So I'm going to give you pointers. Maybe you can take notes and Google Anyway, this recording would be available for future reference, and also the slide deck you can always refer. So the olden days, the focus was more on delivering the application in the software development life cycle, more focused on functionality, not on security. But today, security is a mandatory requirement. It starts with even in the requirement gathering stage, right? With you involve a security professional, preferably an engineer or an architect who sits with the development team and understands the requirements and then looks at all aspects, starting with threat modeling, right? He goes all the 9 yards. And we are talking about DevOps in the last 7, 8 years. DevSecOps have come into mainstream. So you see all these touch points on security, right? If you are into application development and you are in DevOps, then definitely you should incorporate security in between Dev and Ops so that your application is securely developed and securely deployed and securely maintained, right? So these are some of the best practices. So at each point you have a security best practice that you need to involve during planning, as I said, threat modeling. During development, you should teach your coders how to write secure coding. You can follow OWASP top 10 best practices, which talks about the threats that you need to watch out for, right? Then it talks about your testing, your secure code reviews you need to do for any vulnerabilities built in the code, and then remediate them. And then you do a vulnerability assessment of the application. Then you do a penetration testing to see how robust your application is to withstand any real life attacks, right? It mimics a PT actually mimics from a hacker's point of view. You actually try to hack into the application to check how strong this application is. And then once you securely deploy, you need to keep monitoring, continuous monitoring for any threats and take action, right? So that is the whole idea, secure SDLC. Now, let's come to the risk management. As I said, risk management is the whole core of cybersecurity. It's all about de-risking the organization, de-risking the business, right? So it has multiple components, the kind of governance you have, what kind of risk appetite the organization has. A small example, a small cooperative bank in a rural bank, for them, 10 crore loss due to frauds, cyber fraud is maybe too much. They could go belly up, they could go bankrupt, right? Whereas a large multinational bank, 10 crores could be chump change. But that doesn't mean that, you can be casual about such frauds. So what I'm saying is the context here is a risk appetite. Every organization has got to what level they'll be able to handle risks, right? What kind of risk and what level, what is the gravity, right? All of that, what is the quantum, all of that you'll have to figure out based on your company's business context, your goals, and your appetite for handling crises, right? A small startup will go belly up, right? If in case there is a major attack, whereas a large multinational will not be. So that is the point about having a strong focus on managing risks with all these aspects. And one key thing is when you manage the risk, you'll also plan for disruptions or incidents or data breaches. We already spoke about it. So domain called cyber resilience, is the word resilience states. How resilient is your business in the face of a major disruptive event or a major cyber attack or a data breach? How quickly you can come back? Earlier, this domain essentially is nothing but your business continuity planning and disaster recovery. So you have to build in all these things if you want to ensure that your downtime is minimal. It could be due to a service level agreement your client has demanded, has mandated as part of your agreement, contractual agreement, or it could be due to revenue loss. So again, look at any of the food apps we spoke about. If the app is not available for say 5 minutes or 10 minutes in a peak season like New Year Eve, right? Imagine the loss they would be having. You're trying desperately to order food in that app and the app is not working. That means the app is suffering some sort of downtime. So it is not resilient. So if the downtime is minimal, it's a mission critical service they are providing as far as the company is concerned. And if keep taking into account all these factors like loss of revenue and reputation in the market, if they have a strategy where this particular app is down to whatsoever reason, they have a failover and quickly they can resume their activities or launch the app in a different from a different server, and it seamlessly customers can log in and order food. Then the downtime is very minimal. The impact is very minimal on the business, right? So all these things you need to factor into based on the risk scenario that your organization is facing, right? Then we spoke about VAPT. So VAPT, the thing is today, in many years ago, people used to say we used to do an annual vulnerability assessment and a pen testing. Today, it is not at all, valid, that kind of notion. Today, we are talking about continuous monitoring. So that's the best practice today, because the threat scenario has changed a lot, and we have to keep pace with the times. It is not enough if you do once in 6 months or quarterly or monthly. It has to be continuous monitoring, right? There are a lot of vendors who are offering that service, and it's all about your ability to and willingness to have such kind of setup where your network and applications, your websites are all monitored continuously, right? So there's something called breach and attack simulation. It's a new domain that has, new concept that came in the last few years, where they assume that there is a breach and then they simulate an attack environment so that you know where your weaknesses are and you can take remediation measures, right? And are we talking about insider threats, right? The fifth column is. So while we talk about threats from external sources, right, from script kiddies to organized syndicates to APT gangs, anyone, what about our own employees, right? We cannot implicitly trust them. So a whole range of best practices we need to have in place, including uh, relevant processes. One basic thing is you do a background verification check. Again, background verification can be different for different people, different levels and different depth you can get for different roles, right? If it is a very sensitive role, you can go very in depth. If it is a very senior profile, you can also do a social media check. You want people with non-controversial personalities, all of that, right? And you should have technology controls like data loss prevention tools, DLP monitoring. One level up, you can go for UBA, right? So we talked about UBA, that is user entity behavioral analysis. So all those things can give you a lot of insights into what is the mindset of the employee and whether they are going to actually commit any anything that will violate the security policy. And most importantly, your security culture also plays a lot. I think we'll talk about security culture in a bit, right? So next, coming to governance, right? So these are the different components that you would be implementing, right, in any program. So how do you manage all of this? All these things are very distinct implementations. You need somebody to coordinate some sort of structure, right? And again, this is a big picture, slide which talks about different aspects of security, right? I think from a CISO's perspective, you have so many moving parts in a security program, right? And how are you going to manage them? The best thing is to have a GRC program, a governance risk and compliance program. So I'm not going to read out the nitty-gritties of this, but suffice to say that you need to have the relevant governance processes in place, including a steering committee to engage with the senior management and get their go ahead and support for all your security initiatives. They also get their guidance and direction. Also keep them posted on different KRIs, KPIs, dashboards, so that they are fully aware. And also, if the CISO has a seat at the board level, it is a very good best practice. Right? It's a best practice that CISOs should have a seat in the board, so that they have a say or a voice in the board level when it comes to security. Of course, it's a different matter. It is all highly choreographed, and what you say is all vetted by your immediate boss. That's a different thing. But at least when the CISO has access to the board, he or she can independently appraise the board members on the security posture, the risk posture of the organization. They can openly talk about things, what are the challenges, constraints, and get guidance and budget approvals and support for their initiatives, right? And it's very important, CISO has to be an independent function. And of course, now because of recessionary pressures in current times, many organizations in the non-tech sector are bunching CISO role with CIO. That may be a very short-sighted move currently for saving money, and of course the bandwidth of the CEO or COO who's managing these departments or functions. But ideally, CISO has to be an independent function. It should not be bunched with anyone so that it gets the attention it deserves, right? The independent CISO will have their own vision and mission strategy for the organization. If you bunch it with another department, it may not get the required attention it deserves, right? And we are aware about the three lines of defense, right? This is a best practice. It came from the military. The term lines of defense came from the military, and it predominantly came from the audit world, this entire concept of three lines of defense. Of course, it has its own demerits or critics who say this is not a very ideal way, but mostly the banking and financial services institutions, they follow this religiously. So primarily, you have your first line of defense made up of all your business unit heads, right? Business is command line functions. And second line is your risk management functions, including your CISO. And third line is your external auditors and internal auditors. So each line has specific role to do, a task to do. So the first line has to implement the controls. They have to take ownership. So simple funda here is, if you own the system, you own the application. If you own the data, then you own the risk, right? So all the functions which are owning the applications, they need to look out for the budget and resourcing, staffing for managing the risk. They cannot say, I'm not a subject matter expert, the central CISO organization should do. Of course, you can always ask for technical support, expertise, and guidance from the central CISO team, but the budget has to come from your from the risk owners. In many organizations, they have a concept of chargeback, right? So the risk owners who are known, but who are no one else but the business unit heads, they'll say, I cannot hire a product security team and all. I don't have the expertise. I don't understand the domain. I don't know what kind of work they will do, or neither do I have a bandwidth to plan for their career development and growth in the organization. So you run it for me on behalf of me, and you charge the money, we'll pay for it. So that is a best practice many organizations do. So centrally, the CISO organization will have a product security team, a GRC team, a vulnerability assessment team, right? PAPT, SOC team, and they keep looking at all the extend services and support to all the business functions to manage the risks, but they will charge money from each of the business unit owners, right? So the risk controls will be defined based on the risk assessment by the second line, that is essentially your CISO organization, and which the risk owners have to implement. Now, risk assurance is provided by the audit functions, whether it is internal or external, doesn't matter. So these people will conduct an audit of the conduct of the security program and give an independent report to the management that how the program is running, how it is being run. Okay, so got it. Now comes the policies, procedures, the entire security documentation. So the basic funda here is whatever you say you have to do, and whatever you do, please document it, right? So it is not that what you say and what you do are divergent. They have to go hand in hand. And today's security documentation is very important, especially if you are company comes under regulations and compliance requirements, because any auditor or assessor will look for evidences, including security policies, procedures, standards, and guidelines. So each of them have their own uh, for definition and purpose. So please make yourself familiar. Today, major problem with people who don't understand security and they are sitting in the leadership roles is they don't understand the difference between policy and a procedure. So they ask for a policy and we give them a very high level policy. The policy document is supposed to be very high level. It's only a management statement of intent, right? So if you're talking about access management policy, it will only talk about what is the management's intent as far as access management is concerned. It will not be more than 4 or 5 pages, right? And our people who don't understand security and they are in leadership, they'll say, this is not comprehensive. I want full details. What is full details? They want the processes. And you add the processes, and the process document will tell you the step by step how part of it, right? So when you add the how and the what, it becomes an unwieldy document, goes to 30, 40 pages, including screenshots, and that is not a policy, right? So these things, as security professionals, if you are very clear, you can educate your leaders and say this is not a best practice. Of course, I'm talking about companies which don't come under compliances. Others who come under ISO or PCI DSS, they have very clear understanding. But the best practices, you need to understand the differences and do it. And in any GRC program, there are a lot of elements, and these elements are very critical to success. So all these components have to be taken care and have to work in tandem that an effective GRC head can actually manage. Now, coming to this threat intelligence, unless you have a strong threat intel from your vendors and open source, right? Signed up service, then your SOC operations will be effective in terms of taking preventive measures against the latest malware on the prowl, or uh, protecting your organization from the latest ransomware attacks, right? So all these things, CTI can actually help, right? Need to have a strong pipeline of threat intelligence from a service provider that would actually do a world of good. So let's not forget that. Now, what is the whole point when you say I have 25 different security policies and supporting processes, we have standards, we have guidelines, but nobody knows in the organization. Unless people know how, they will follow. And if you catch them violating, they would always say, I don't know. But we all know that ignorance of law is no excuse, right? So what is the remedy for that? You need to have a strong security awareness program. You need to have an awareness program that actually catches people young and early. So do you have a security induction program on day one when people join? Do you have an ongoing awareness program, not necessarily a classroom session or a instructor led? It could be a e-learning. It could be made more fun and interactive, more gamified. Because today we are talking about millennial kids, right? Millennials are in the workforce today, and you go and talk to them for 1 hour with a boring presentation, they may not understand or have, they will not be able to relate. They'll not be able to focus. So you have to make it more fun, more engaging, more gamified, involve them, give them rewards, recognize them, and make them understand the criticality of following best practices as per your organization, policy highlights, right? So you may have best of password policy, best of access management, for example. Unless people know what is what, or teleworking policy, we work in hybrid mode. What are the best practices? You need to explain, right? So all of that, if you make it more gamified and fun oriented, then it could be a success. But of course, you need to provide people incentives for best practices. You reward them, pat them in the back, give them recognition. That would actually help, right? Understand the difference as security professionals, the difference between awareness, training, education. We all mix it up. We all say it's all same. No. Awareness is saying what is what. So I'm talking today, if I'm sending an advisory on the latest malware threat or a ransomware threat, I'm only saying what is what. So I'll say it could come in the form of a phishing email. These are all the characteristics. Please keep a watch on these keywords. If you receive such things, please report to our help desk. So it is awareness. It's not teaching you anything big, but only telling you what is what, right? Training, I'm trying to tell you, give you a skill. You attend a 3-day training program, 10-day training program, end of it, the goal is to equip you with a skill. So I'm teaching you a particular, SOC software, SIM software, 10-day training. End of it, I want you to be skilled. That's the how part. That is training. Education is you understand over a period of time. You work in the industry for 5 years. And in 5 years, in all the companies that you work or the environments you work, everyone talks about importance of security. So over a period of time, you pick up. I'm not talking education doesn't mean you get a degree or a certificate. No, not that. You understand the why. Over a period of time, you pick up very naturally in a subconscious manner, right? So if anybody is asking why this is done, why a security team is bombarding us with so many emails and phishing simulation exercises, you'll be able to explain. That comes with experience, right? Okay. So now comes the SOC. Today, SOC has evolved a lot. It's not the traditional SOC anymore. We are talking about next gen, new gen SOC, and with the SOAR, all the latest technologies. Intelligent SOC we are talking about, fully integrated with your CTI and AI powered, right? Very, very sophisticated SOC program. Along with that, in SOC, you have cyber forensics, again, a very distinct career path. It's not for everyone, only those who are interested in, solving issues, getting to the bottom of it. It's a very niche domain. Not all companies can afford to have forensic teams, right? Mostly the consulting firms and the pure play security firms, they would be having forensics. So the hit rate has to be really high, right? So for every case that you get, you need to solve it. If you're not able to solve, then your abilities are under question. So forensics, again, a very, very niche domain, right? Then we talk about IoT and physical security, right? So what is the whole point? You say, I have a $1 million security program with the best of the tools and technologies and best practices. I'm certified with that. But somebody can actually walk into your office and take out a laptop or a device and walk away, or you keep stuff in the near the window and somebody is able to take it out of the window, right? So it has to go hand in hand. Very, very advanced companies, progressive minded company actually merge these two domains. I know people say cyber security is from Mars and physical security is from Venus. These two domains are very diverse. But I've seen in companies, I work for companies where these two domains have been converged. You have a converged security program where at times I've seen the chief security officer uh, to whom the CISO reports, and the CSO comes from non-tech background. I worked in companies where the CSO came from airport security background, and he's handling information security or cyber security and along with privacy and business continuity or resilience. All these domains report into that. So the best practice here is if you are having an ability to marry these two domains, you will get a holistic view of the risks that companies are facing, right? So today, banking organizations have converged security solutions. So if it is a national holiday or a bank holiday, and they have controls where you cannot, as an employee, you cannot go and access the core banking system and do any transactions. So it'll actually look for the time and the context and before allowing access. So in all banks, you would have seen people who access core banking have to use biometric authentication before they access your bank accounts, right? So like that, I have a lot of controls today available where converged security solutions are actually playing a big role. Now, cybersecurity, we all know it's a very, very dynamic and vibrant domain. It is not that you completed your MTech or BTech in 2005 and then you never wanted to open the book. That will not work in this domain. Every day is different. Every day new threats, new concepts you have to keep. So for which you need to ensure that you wear your learning hat all the time, and so that you are on the top of things, right? So you have to work in projects to build the expertise, build a track record for delivering complex projects, right? And you have to be part of industry meetings and conferences so that you know what is the latest thing going on, network with people, have some mentors so that you receive good advice and guidance on how you can shape your career, right? And of course, you need to create an identity once you build that mass beyond. Say you are a seasoned professional and you have the required expertise and experience, then you can do all these activities. And finally, you can always reach out to people as a mentor and also guide youngsters. So you need to be aligned with the industry best practices. In particular company, if you are doing great, that is fine. But just do a dipstick check whether the skills that you have is actually appreciated by the industry. That we will get it only when you appear for interviews or talk to people in the industry. Then you will know what is actually the in thing, right? So don't be confined to what your company's budget or security program goals are. They may be in a different tangent. They may not be necessarily aligned with industry best practices, especially I'm talking about legacy organizations. So it's very important that you stay on the top of the things if you want to be successful. If you want to have a standout personality in the industry, then you need to do all of these things. So align yourself with some industry or association, right? ISACA or ISC Square, attend their meetings, volunteer. The exposure you get will be very, very, very huge, right? And finally, the core, security architecture. We talk about identities, identity access management. A large organization where you have, say, 1 lakh employees. Just imagine the amount of identity and accesses they need to manage, right? To issue and provision and manage. And today, the last 5 6 years, zero trust as a concept has come in a very very big way. The whole idea is behind this is never trust but always verify and follow the implement the principle of least privileges and ensure that you have complete visibility and control of all the components, right? Whether it is individual identities or devices, the perimeter, right? Whatever access they are getting, you need to have complete control, right? And the other aspect is the cloud. The cloud aspect today, there's no company that wouldn't be part of the cloud transformation. So cloud has its own risks and threats, and right from having the right kind of controls, the tools, right? You have to ensure that cloud monitoring is continuous, and you need to have a well rehearsed playbook for managing security incidents in the cloud, right? Another major best practice I would always recommend is the defense in depth strategy, right? Again, this term was borrowed from the military. So you have different layers in your security architecture. So even architecting your network and your cloud needs a lot of experience and expertise, aligning with your company's goals, right? Goals and objectives and vision, right? So you have for every layer you have a set of best practices that you can see here. So whoever is implementing these controls, if you have a proper vision on implementing through a defense in-depth methodology or taking that approach would actually do a whole world of good. And look at this different layers: data security, AppSec, endpoint, network security, perimeter security, and all of them have so many acronyms. In the entire IT world, there is no other domain except cybersecurity has so much of 3 letter, 4 letter acronyms, right? And every year it keeps getting complex. So much of vendors, so much of new technologies that are coming in. Today, we are talking about AI, right? AI is almost like threatening whatever we built carefully. And today, zero trust is big. Zero trust again is not a one-stop solution that you can deploy. It is a journey. It is not today I bought one solution. The Google took 7 years to transform their entire technology stack aligned with zero trust principles. So it takes time, effort, and vision to implement, convincing the management, building a business case, getting approvals, and then identifying the right vendors and see whether they fit into your company's requirement, implement them. And today, we all know it's very difficult to get the right skill sets, right? The talent war is talent shortage, talent war, everything is a pain. So, nurturing a good team to implement your security program is again the lookout of the CISO and senior leaders in the company. So that is another problem that we find, in running a security program successfully, and implementing best practices is not easy thing, right? The best practices takes a lot of time, effort, focus, and attention to implement, right? With all the challenges and constraints, still we need to deliver. Now, one thing I just took for giving you a flavor is the CIS controls, right? Version 8. Earlier version had 20 controls. Now they are optimized to 18 controls. I'm just giving one example for you to understand what all the controls you need to implement in a organization, right? And here is a mapping of different controls by different vendors. So you need to have access to these kind of sites or resources which will give you a complete picture, and then you'll be able to decide smartly. And for every technology today, major technology, you need to implement best practices. You're buying, say, for example, Google Workspace, you are migrating. You cannot blindly implement without understanding the security and privacy ramifications. So, how would you know? I'm not an expert in Google Workspace, it's completely new to me. I'm sure all of us face this when a new product is being implemented, mainly for cost or functionality reasons. But as security professionals, we are asked to perform a risk assessment. So how would you do it? I don't have a clue. The solution is CIS benchmarks, right? So this benchmark has, multiple across these areas. So you see across all this below, I have given the list here. All these areas you have best practices, even for MacBook, iOS, for everything they have very nice PDF documents you can download. And all these things are actually very helpful. I given the link as well, or you can just Google for it, CIS benchmark, and you can benefit by implementing. Some of them are very good actually in terms of the checklist that you need to follow for implementing the best practices. You need if you can leverage on the this particular website, you don't have to look any further when it comes to implementing best practices. Yeah. So again, this is a very big picture, pretty crowded. So across all these areas, across your governance, management, technical controls, and your operational controls, what and all you'll be putting in place. Again, cybersecurity is a team sport. It's not one person or one particular department can do. You need all the skill sets available, and everyone needs to work in tandem. That is something the CISO and the GRC team can help in coordinating and getting things done. Clear? Now comes the last domain, all the frameworks. As you grow higher in your career, it's very important that you gain understanding of the different frameworks and standards, right? So the regulated entities or companies which are already coming under any certification framework will need to follow any of these standards. NIST, for instance, gives you very good list of cybersecurity framework controls that you need to put in place. Each domain, each industry sector has its own security framework, the major ones, right? The healthcare or banking, right? One of them. Now, CISO leadership is very important. The personality of the CISO, the vision and the mindset they have matters a lot, right? The range and breadth and the caliber of that person matters a lot in running the security program successfully. And mind you, today's scenario, because of different cyber attacks that are happening, CISO tenure is actually by various industry surveys is hardly 18 months to 24 months, right? So I'm not scaring you. Those of you who are aspiring to be CISO should have a strong and large risk appetite, right? So no CEO would say he was really good, technically very smart. He did all the right things, but I didn't give the budget, so we got hacked. So it is my mistake, so I have to be punished. No CEO will ever say that, right? Normally, the CISOs are made the scapegoats because of various reasons, right? Even budget constraints, they're not able to implement tools or implement processes. Then there is a security incident or a data breach. The blame falls on the CISO, right? So that is a sad thing in today's industry. Okay. And finally, culture eats strategy for breakfast. It's a very popular quote. I really love it. Whatever big strategy that you plan, if your culture is not supporting, right, it is not conducive, it is not positive, not a very encouraging set of behaviors who people follow best practices, and there is no support from management, there is no leadership by example. All these things will lead to a cultural degradation where people do not disclose things, people violate their policies, and they don't follow best practices. And that could lead to a lot of security incidents and breaches, right? And now the latest flavor of the season, the last 1 year since November 2021, when Chat GPT broke into the tech world, we are talking about AI. So AI is not the solution for everything. It has its own risks, especially for data security, right? So across privacy and security, you have risks, and you do have tools, best practices from WASP. They have released a top 10 list for large language models. And also NIST also has come up with risk management framework for AI, right? So please leverage on these resources. You can just Google for them and then you can get it. PwC has got a responsible AI framework because AI has a lot of tendency to have the biases of the programmers, right? So responsible and ethical AI is the need of the hour, right? For instance, we are talking about autonomous cars. So if a car is actually going in a high speed and the car is somebody comes in between, whether the car needs to put a sudden brake and save the pedestrian. In the bargain, it will get hit by vehicles coming behind, or the car should swerve and go and hit a lamppost. So those are all ethical dilemmas, right? That need to take care. I'm just giving a very high-level example because I'm from that industry, right? And today, governments are also concerned. You must have heard about the latest Artificial Intelligence Act has been passed in the EU, right? We are also talking about a lot of rules that the companies need to follow when they develop and deploy AI products like AI solutions, right? And India also is saying that a few months back, Indian IT minister also talks about regulation for AI so that privacy is actually ensured. So with this, I end my presentation with this particular quote. Security is like the brakes on your car. Their function is to slow you down, but their purpose is to allow you to go fast. And security, end of the day, is a business enabler. Even though we do not earn money in a conventional organization, but it actually acts as a business enabler because brakes inspire confidence for speeding. Because at the back of your mind, you know you are secure, right? They say fast cars should have good brakes. So that's the same analogy I can give. So with this, I stop my presentation. If you have questions, then we can take now. Thank you.
Uh, Thank you for those really interesting insights and observations. I think it was a very comprehensive presentation that you made. There's a lot of information there, and I think some people have already requested that, if they could have a copy of the presentation. So I have
Sure.
told them that we'll make available a recording of this session so that they can refer back to all the things that you have said during this session.
Yeah.
I think, but a lot of the insights and the views that you have given on managing the evolving security environment through the adoption of all these good practices will certainly be very useful to everyone who has attended this session.
Sure, sure.
So there is one question from Mr. Subaraju VV. And the question he asks is, what are the unidentified risks in the manufacturing industry and how to, prevent them?
See, there is a concept called in risk management unknown unknowns. You are asking about unknown unknowns for which there is no solution, right? So in the manufacturing industry, you have to go by the business context and also understand if there is any contractual requirements by your clients or regulations that come in, right? For instance, I can talk about my own automotive industry. While we do not come under any major compliance so far, like ISO, unless we choose to become ISO certified, we are not chosen. We don't come under PCI DSS either because we do not collect the credit card information from customers. And it's done only by the dealers, and their dealers are different from OEMs. So, but of late, we do have the new cybersecurity standard for automotive cybersecurity called UNECE WP29. WP29 is Working Party 29, number 29. UNECE is a UN body, United Nations Economic Commission for Europe. That is called UNECE. WP29 regulations for automotive cybersecurity. You can Google for this. This talks about the best practices for cybersecurity management system and software update management system, CSMS and SUMS. So when you do this exercise, many countries are signatories to this, including Japan and the US, and you can actually implement your best practices, managing your risks better. And of course, you need to have an ongoing risk assessment program to as per your business context and the scoping. That will only give you an understanding and visibility into the risks facing your organization. So having an ongoing risk assessment program and managing the risks is only key for having better control of the situation. And we cannot predict what is going to hit us tomorrow. So having a SOC which is fully integrated with CTI will give you insights on the operational perspective about the latest threats. So these threats can be managed more smartly when you have an agile SOC practice, right? So that's the answer I can give. I don't know how far that would be convincing for you, but that's where it
So,
is.
Dr. Amkar, if you could just taking that manufacturing industry and extending it slightly further, would you have a comment on number one, IT OT integration, then IoT, and the third is robotics? Because we are going to see all these three trends playing out in the manufacturing space. So, what will be the implication for cybersecurity?
Of course, today IoT security is very important. You have a lot of best practices and available for anyone to follow. And you take the example of a average car today, connected car. Today's cars are no longer simple mechanical, electrical contraption like the earlier vehicles. Today they are all highly connected cars. They are literally data center on wheels. Every car will have 1,500 to 2,000 sensors, IoT sensors, right from your ECU to your transmission control unit, body control module. Everything is managed by sensors, IoT sensors, each of them programmed for a specific set of tasks. And you cannot go and take your car to any wayside, roadside garage and get it fixed. Everything is proprietary software. You take to the particular OEM service station. They connect it with their tools, right? Their laptop and scan the OBD port and do. So point is all these things are add to a lot of layers of security concerns, risks actually. We all use our mobiles for OTA happens, right? Over the air updates for our mobile phones frequently. Same concept is there for cars also. So in this kind of scenario, IoT security is very important. I'm just giving an example of the car industry. Of course, today IoT sensors are there from your smartwatches to everything. So importantly, IoT security has got a special attention in people who are in the product security teams. And matured organizations, they have teams that look into the best practices. They define the best practices for IoT security in terms of hardening the device, what kind of data it collects, what kind of processing and where it is stored, and whether the hardened solution can be blocking any hacker attempts, right? That's why we always advise when you go for consumer products with IoT devices, go for big brands, reputed brands. Don't go for unknown Chinese stuff, which you don't know where that manufacturer themselves will be harvesting data and misusing them. So IoT security is very critical from data collection, monitoring, storage, and communication. So all of that. IT OT is big today, especially in the earlier. IT OT was not that well integrated. You do had PLC, SCADA scanners, and I mean systems, which was completely air gapped, and it was completely away from internet. Right, there was no internet connectivity. They were very much isolated, and they were all majorly legacy systems. Right, and today, IT OT has come up in a big way. There are specialist companies that give you advisory and consulting on the best practices you need to follow. You have security professionals who specialize in IT OT, right? In manufacturing industries where robotics, actually help in uh, assembling vehicles, right? Or I heard about TVS. BMW has got a tie-up with BMW, TVS and BMW, where BMW bikes are manufactured, assembled in the plant and in Tamil Nadu and Mysore, and then they get shipped abroad. So those are completely integrated units where human effort is minimal, all done by remote robotic arms and stuff, and managed by IT/OT environment, right? The recent Ola Gigafactory also is completely automated. So that way, IT/OT has its own requirements for security. There's a new crop of security professionals who are trained, and they are taking care of that. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ramkumar. This was a really great session, and I think, everybody who has attended it would have found this very, very useful and helpful. But unfortunately, we have run out of time. So my thanks to everyone who attended this session and posted questions. I hope you found this webinar interesting and informative. Please do send in your feedback through the link which is being posted in the chat box. It will help us organize more such sessions in the future. And thank you once again, Dr. Ramkumar, for being here and for sharing your views and your knowledge with on this session. So thank you once again. And meanwhile,
My
it's
pleasure,
goodbye.
sir.
And meanwhile, it's goodbye from the CISO Forum for now. And have a great week ahead. Thank
You
you.
too. Bye bye. Thank you.